have a very special guest here today, and we are going to start off by just jumping into some content. And the focus for today's meeting, we're going to start with talking about inspections. And everyone's going to encounter this throughout the course of their career with pretty much every transaction that you do. As we think about the transaction and how it's laid out, the first step is to get something into contract. Once you get something into contract, though, the next big hurdle that you have to pass over is the inspection process. So here with us today, we have an inspector. His name's Tony, and Tony runs Dwell Inspection Services. And the reason I've asked him to come on is because I trust him, and he does a really good job of providing really clear feedback for my clients. He's one of 3 that I recommend, and does a good job for not a ton of money. So it's a good value proposition for our clients. So we are going to do a little bit of a Q&A. Tony, you want to introduce yourself to everyone? Kind of how long you've been in the business, where you started, where you've been, and how you got here?
Yeah. Hey, I'm glad I'm here. Again, I'm here for you guys. So if you have any questions through this process, just let me know. I started the business about 4 years ago in Cincinnati. I was doing construction management, doing commercial building for about 6 years before then, and just kind of got tired of the day-to-day schedule and budget conflicts that I was having with owners and subcontractors. So I wanted to find something that I could enjoy. And we were buying a house at the time and went through that process of the inspection. I was like, I feel like I'm a quality control guy, so I love the details and the little things. So I felt like maybe I could try this. So I started the trainings, kind of fell in love with the process, and really fell in love with the entrepreneurial side of it as well. So we are now obviously in Columbus. We moved up here about a year and a half ago for my wife's work. So I have an inspector in Cincinnati, and then I take care of the Columbus stuff, our inspections. Last year we did about 400 inspections total. We're about in the 4 years, we're almost.
All right. Well, somebody was rocking there for a second. So let's see. I know that it's been proposed and talked about and back and forth with legislature and stuff to make sure that all of our inspectors are actually licensed and know what the heck they're talking about. Are you one of those licensed inspectors?
I am, yes. I do have my Ohio license, and at some point I was a Kentucky license, but Tanner, my inspector in Cincinnati, now has that. So we are licensed. I am a member of Columbus Board of Realtors and Columbus MLS. So we do have access to lock boxes and showing time. So we do all that scheduling. So you guys don't have to.
So one of the reasons that I like working with Tony is that this part of the process can be really, really scary. Anyone who's purchased a home can probably attest that the inspection process is quite an eye-opener, especially the first time you go through it. And one of the things that we don't want to do is come off as abrasive or making mountains out of molehills. And there are inspectors, quite a few inspectors that I've encountered that do just that, where they scare off our clients and make them want to walk away from a house that could have potentially been a real hassle to get them in contract on in the first place. So, Tony, kind of take us through the approach that you take with our clients in notifying them of opportunities with homes.
Yeah. So the big thing for us is we are very detailed. So our reports have all the little things. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that maybe someone might not concerned about. So we're not trying to make this a list of like, this is the things you need to get fixed before you buy this house. That's not my job. My job is to tell you what's wrong with the material wise of the house. And here's their ways to fix it. So when we approach clients, and right now we've been doing kind of 30-minute walkthroughs at the end of our inspection if clients can make it. Basically, we're just going to tell you what's wrong with it. again, it's a lot of stuff we're piling into 30 minutes. But the way we orient our reports, the way we talk through it is these are things you can fix over the years of your why you live in this house. Yes, there's going to be things that need to get fixed right away, safety wise. But we're gonna talk to clients as like, hey, this is your punch list for 1 year, and then if you want to do this stuff in 3 to 5 years, here's the thing that I would tackle in those regards as well. So we're not looking at it as like you can't have this house unless you fix these 10 items. No, that's not our job. We're going to tell you the safety things, and we're going to tell you here's a list of things I would get fixed over the next few years.
Beautiful. And Tony's not saying that his whole inspection takes 30 minutes. It's just with COVID restrictions, like they want to be safe, not have the person tailing behind them for 3 hours. Because I think your typical window is what, 2 to 3 hours, Tony? Is that right for an inspection?
Yeah, so they've been taking about 2.5 to 3 hours is what our typical inspection takes.
Share with the team here, what all inspections do you do?
Yeah, so we do home inspections, we do termite inspections, and then we have a third-party radon, which it basically we will schedule, we will pay, we will do everything for the radon. So it's kind of an in-house as well for a client, if you look at it from a client's perspective. So those are the three we do in-house or take care of. If we do have contacts for people, if they do want like a sewer scope, we can reference some people to send that way.
Great. And so in regards to the contract, it does state all, like our Columbus contract states all the inspections that we encourage and we want to encourage our clients to obtain. That includes things that weren't mentioned, like mold. Did you say pest? You do wood destroying insects. And then like things that if you're out in the country, there's things like well and septic that we might need to look at other options in order to get those things inspected. But as realtors, and this is where the coaching side comes into play, we always state to our clients, I'm not discouraging you from getting any inspection. I want to make that very clear. We do not ever discourage people from getting inspections. Reason being, we don't want them to ever come back to us or come back on us and file formal complaints or even sue us for saying, hey, Josh never told me that I needed an inspection. And so I waived it because that's what people are doing these days. And now there's a leak in my bathroom and I'm suing him for that. We don't want that to happen. I don't want that for any of you guys, right? And so that's why we encourage people to get these inspections. Tony, can you share with us kind of just a rough estimate for cost of an inspection so we can guide our clients?
Yeah, so all this stuff, I just kind of added all this kind of stuff to our website as well. So it's all clear. We're not trying to add we don't have these little, if your house is this old plus this much dollars. So our lines are $355 for an inspection. That's for a house up to 3,000 square feet. So if it's a little bigger house, we add additional $40. If it's a drive over 40 miles, we add $40. Those are our only two kind of adds. So typical house, $355 for the inspection. We do $70 for termites and $125 for radon. If you have like a condo, we do those for $305.
Beautiful. And what's the typical turnaround time? So let's say I get my inspection today. How quickly will I have that report?
Yeah, so what we tell people is 24 hours is you'll get it within 24 hours. My typical process is, we can get you the report really fast if you need it. If it's in like a last minute thing, we can get it to you pretty much right after inspection. But usually I will do my work once my kids go to sleep. So you'll get reports like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night is when of the day of inspection. So we do try to hit that 24 hours just so that we are, so that you're not waiting for us in that regards. But we do have we do pretty much have it available right after if you need it.
Cool. And I'm going to show them an example of your reports here in a moment. We're going to do a screen share. Let's talk from a coaching perspective now. So let's say you guys get into contract. Congratulations. You've done something that's damn near impossible right now. Now your next step is to, let's say you're helping a buyer And so the very next thing that you do is you create a timeline for your buyer because you want everyone to be on the same page. Well, the first thing you're going to really promote them to do is reach out to an inspection company, because sometimes if you're not going with somebody like Tony, there can be a lead time in order to, from scheduling to execution. And in the typical window that we encourage y'all to write in, it's 5 to 7 days for an inspection. Well, if you wait till the 5th day to schedule the inspection, and I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying your client should be the one who is scheduling the inspection. If they wait too long to schedule, there's a chance that you're going to miss your window. And if you've allowed a remedy period, you don't want to miss that window because you have then nullified your opportunity to ask for things. So Tony, how easy is it to schedule an appointment with you, and how much lead time would you like to see?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just depends on the day of the week. Obviously, we try to avoid weekends inspections when we can, but in the busy season, we do Saturday and Sunday inspections. So we kind of have a 9 a.m. inspection and a 12:30 inspection are kind of our two frames. If clients need a little later, we can push that back a little bit as well. But the best way to schedule for us, we have an online form that you can fill out on our website. That just helps us. That gives us all the client's information, all realtors' information, address, so we don't misspell something while we're driving and writing it down on the phone call. So really, that's the best way. You can also call, text. We are available pretty much every hour of the day for that inquiry. But usually we can schedule, again, if those time slots are available, we'll schedule the next day if we need to, if it's a vacant house or something where we can. But usually if you call, it's probably not going to be the next day, but the following day. So at least a 36-hour kind of window of like, hey, if there's the space, we can get it the next day. But usually we have to allow sellers to that 24-hour period as well.
Yeah, that's a good call out. So if you're adding it up, so you've got, just in my mind, so if I go into contract today and I only have a 5-day window to do the inspection, and my client decides to wait for 2 days to schedule, well, then we're putting ourselves in a pinch because I'm not even going to get the actual inspection likely till the 4th day, and then the report on the 5th day, most likely, of worst case scenario. So then we're dealing with a real time crunch to get the remedy response or request over to the seller. So the sooner, from your guys' perspective as the agent, the sooner your client can get this scheduled, the better off you're going to be, the less stressful it's going to be, and you're going to look like more of a rock star. So encourage your folks as soon as they get into contract, and then follow up the very next day. Hey, were you able to schedule the inspection? And Tony does a good job of notifying you once the inspection's actually been scheduled, because a lot of times you won't know because your client maybe doesn't think that they need to tell you. And that's okay if you're dealing with somebody like Tony, but if you're dealing with a different inspector, you're going to want to follow up with your client. Tony, would you mind? I'm going to pull up your inspection that you send over to the agent, and I know you send it to the agent and the client, right?
Yeah. So we include the agent in on pretty much all the conversations between the client and us.
Great.
Whenever we do schedule, when I click the schedule button, you'll get that confirmation of like, hey, it's been scheduled for this client. I'll try to put the client's name in the subject and then the address, just so you know, and the time.
And make sure as the agent, you are aware of what all inspections they're getting. So Tony notates this. I made a critical error with a friend of mine that decided to they got a radon inspection, and I totally didn't think that they were going to do that. And it didn't dawn on me to even ask them. This was like my first year, I think. And so they get the radon inspection, and the radon typically takes a little bit longer to get the results back because you need to have it set up for 48 hours, the test. So we got the basic inspection report back, and we went ahead. I had the phone call afterwards with them, and we talked about what they wanted to request, and we submitted that. And then a day later, we got the radon report back, and the other side had already agreed to our responses. And so radon was high, and I felt like an idiot because I didn't realize they had got the test. So that's $1,000 fix. And that came out of my pocket because I wanted to make sure that I took care of my clients. At the end of the day, they were cool with it, but my wallet wasn't. So make sure that you're aware of all the inspections your clients are getting and don't jump the gun when you get the first result back, because you want to make sure you have all the information prior to proceeding. Tony, would you mind, I'm going to pull up a report. Would you mind in the chat function to put your contact information and your website so that folks can track you down?
Yeah. So I just kind of updated the website a little bit too. So there's like 3 different sample reports on there. There's a pricing sheet. I can send you a pricing sheet too if you'd like that. Our standards of practice are on there, the inspection agreement. So we've added all these things that kind of not all people will look at, but just so that you have, we're not hiding anything from anybody. So here's what our stuff is like, and here's what we use and follow.
All right. So he's going to type that in the chat box. While we're doing that, can you all see my screen?
No.
Yes.
So somebody said yes. If you can't see my screen, turn your screen on.
My screen's on, but I can't see you.
Can you see my, sorry, can you see my, does it say McPartland Court on your screen?
My screen is still on waiting,
Oh, that's fine.
spinning.
Maureen, that's your connection, probably.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll probably, all right, I'll have to disconnect then and try again, huh?
Okay, yeah, try that.
All right.
Sorry about that. So
No,
we're gonna,
that's okay.
let's look at this so everybody else can see this. When you get, when Tony gets done with his inspection, he sends the email over, and this is what it's gonna look like when you open it.
You're still on, shit.
So there are 2 inspections that were completed on this one. The WDI, that stands for Wood Destroying Insect Report. And then we've got the dwell inspection report. So this is the basic inspection. So we're gonna quickly view these and chat really quickly about them. So wood destroying insect report, there's really only one thing that matters in my eyes, and that is this portion right here. So if there's no visible evidence of wood destroying insects, then you can kind of write this report off and not worry about it. However, in this situation, there was. So there were some carpenter bee holes noted above the garage door. So that may be something that we incorporate into a remedy request. This is a quick report. It just gives you a location of where they inspected and what they found.
Yeah, and for wood destroying insects, we're looking at termites, carpenter bees, carpenter ants, and there's some beetles in there, but that's a rare find. So really the big things there are the termites. We see some carpenter bees. That's not a hard fix for someone, but carpenter bees and carpenter ants are the things we'll see a lot.
Hey, Tony, I know for your wood destroying insects, but that's not part of the inspection. But obviously if you're walking around the house and you notice the bore holes that are in there, you document it on the report anyways, correct?
Yeah, we'll mention it as damage, basically damage to the exterior is what it'll come out as. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was I gonna say? So if you have questions after, let's say you're like, as the agent, guys, I honestly don't encourage you to attend the inspections. I did that with my first client, and after that I said I'm never going to do this again because it was 3 hours long and oh my gosh, it stunk. Nowadays it's a 30-minute recap with Tony, and most inspectors are doing that now. However, I'd rather you go lead gen. This is not important for you to be in attendance unless you don't trust your inspector. The inspector is very important. You don't want them to scare off your client. So if you're not sure that you trust the person, then maybe you attend just to ease any fears. But I don't do that. I'd rather go lead gen and wait for the report. So if I have a question about, let's say the wood destroying insect report, I open that up and there's something catastrophic or appears to be really rough, I can call Tony and just say, hey, can you give me more information on this? And he's normally glad to answer the questions that I've got. So we're going to jump into the basic inspection report here. Now, as we open this up, this is the same thing that the seller or the buyer gets. The reason I prefer working with a person like Tony is because the inspection report itself is very well organized. The thing that I think I like the most about it is this like kind of red light, green light thing. There are some inspectors that I've seen that just write page upon page of stuff, and it's really hard to organize your thoughts. We want to make this process as easy and streamlined as possible. So having the ability to quickly know that there's only 2 major safety hazards in the home, and with his report, I can jump right to it. That's nice. I've seen other reports that are hot garbage that scare the crap out of even me, and I've been doing this for a while. On a given inspection report, guys, you're going to find 100, what was on this one, 158 items that were inspected. Okay, that's a lot of stuff that Tony's looking at. Of the 158 though, and even this is overwhelming, 18 are recommended repair. Well, as we go through this report, you're going to see that of those 18, really there's some minor things that we want to keep an eye on. And if you're not asking for a remedy anyways, which a lot of people aren't these days, all this is information only. So let's jump to the safety hazard items here. And then I'm going to ask you a couple questions, Tony. So the first one is in the kitchen. There's no GFCI outlet. Okay. The second one is in the unfinished basement, no GFCI. Tony, of all the items that you notate as safety concerns, what fraction would you say are GFCI related?
I would say probably 85% are GFCI related. Or yeah, I would say that. The only things that really for us that hit safety are electrical and fall hazards. You'll see some people will notate something safety hazard that really are just like missing a cover plate on the outlet. Like to me, that's a $2 like $1 fix with a flathead screwdriver. That's not, to me, that's not safety. So yeah, 85% of the time it's GFCI related. Yeah.
And so the reason I asked that question is because a lot of people, like a first-time home buyer, that's going to freak them out. Oh my gosh, GFCI. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds serious. Right? And so this is where education comes into play. And this is the whole reason that we're doing this call, is because I think it's important to have this education. This is not an expensive fix. I know of an electrician that charges, X number of dollars, I think it's under $50 to fix a GFCI outlet. And ultimately, this wasn't code back when, I'm assuming this wasn't code back when this house was originally erected. So they didn't have to use GFCI back then. Nowadays, we like that. It prevents, electrocution in wet areas. So if it's something you're want to fix, then just make sure that you're telling your client that this is not going to burn your house down in most circumstances. Other thing I like about this report is that it breaks it down by room. So as I'm writing my report, my remedy request, if I want to be really, really organized for the other side so that when they go through the report, they can know exactly what I'm referencing, then I just say, hey, there's a GFCI in the kitchen. It's item 2.7.1 on the report. And then I share the report with the other side. You are expected, if you're asking for a remedy request, you are expected to share this report with the other side so that they have something to reference and they make sure they're fixing things accurately. So of those 18 items that repair was recommended on, 2 of them are right here. There's a leaking dishwasher. And if you click on this, you'll get bigger pictures. And then there's no water shutoff valves underneath the sink. So of these 2 items, guys, I'm going to open it up. Of these 2 items, which one do you think is more critical?
The valve.
The leaking.
Oh, yeah, I'll say
Leaking.
leaking. Yeah, leaking dishwasher.
Yeah, and to each their own, guys, but as a, you know, as a realtor, we're trying to think high level. The leaking dishwasher, that's creating water damage right now. No water shut off valves, as long as they're not leaking, it's not maybe a massive concern right now. So if we're asking for things to be fixed, the leaking dishwasher probably has priority. In regards to the remedy request, I want to provide you guys with some insight on how to approach that. So let's say we get this report back. There's 158 items on it. There's 2 major critical safety concerns. There's 18 other items that should require repair. When you approach this situation with your first time home buyer or 18th time home buyer, doesn't really matter. You need to be prepared for the conversation. What I typically do when we get into contract is we share with our clients a list of inspectors, and then we follow up to make sure they get the inspection done. And then we say, hey, as soon as we get the report, we're going to probably sleep on it overnight and give us some time to review it. And then the following day, we will have a call to coordinate what we want to do and how we want to proceed. So that also gives, and I would encourage you to give your client some time to review the report as well. I like to ask my client to come prepared to speak to that at that call with things that they feel are important. And I will do the same. I'll come with things that I feel are important to ask for to be remedied. And the reason I do that is I want their perspective, because a lot of times it's going to be even less stringent than what I was thinking. And I don't really want to start off that conversation. I want to let them go first during that phone call. I will also kind of create a silo for what we're looking at on this report. We're not looking at cosmetic things. We're not going to ask for little nickel and dime things to be fixed, or that's not the way that I like to approach things. I tell people I look at 4 things that I feel are critical in order to feel that you're getting the safest house possible. Number 1 would be electrical. Number 2 would be plumbing. Number 3 would be foundation. And number 4 would be overall safety concerns. So let's say there's a step missing. That would be an overall safety concern, right? And we would want that to be fixed. Or let's say there's some plumbing leaks that could lead to high dollar fixes. Those are important things. Of those 4 things, those are what we typically will write into a remedy request. Other things, and we'll get into this here in a moment, dirty fireplace. I don't typically lose sleep over a dirty fireplace. It's got a fire going on it. It's supposed to probably be a little bit dirty. Now, if there's a massive amount of creosote buildup, then maybe we need to ask for a chimney sweep. As I continue to get through here, minor corner cracks. Notice the color on this. This is, again, why I like this report, is because it's not red, it's not orange. It doesn't denote something that's majorly critical. This is just kind of putting the eye on something that could be an opportunity. Minor wall cracks. We've got to ease our people's fears. When I first bought a house, I didn't know if a crack was a big deal or not. Something like settling, though, we need to know that's not a huge deal. And initially, as we're walking the home with our clients at the initial showing, we should be notating these things and preparing them for what they're going to see on the report, so that Tony doesn't appear to be like the Grim Reaper sharing, hey, there's a crack here. We should have already seen that, most likely. Moisture detected. Anything with water, I get concerned about, because water is a home wrecker. Stopper missing. How much does that fix cost, Tony? Any idea?
I mean, just a new drain sink, so maybe $20.
Okay, so that's pretty minor. That's be something that I would consider kind of a cosmetic thing. And the thing I like about Tony is there's been times where I've had to call him and ask him, hey, I've never encountered this part of, or this issue before. What's your advice on like who to go talk to, or what's your idea of a cost for this? And he'll share his honest concern, or his honest feedback. So we're not going to go through this entire report, but while we've got Tony on, what questions additionally do you guys have for Tony about inspections, what he looks at, et cetera?
I have a question about the carpenter bees. So if you have a home that only has a couple of carpenter bee holes, like how big of an issue is that? Or, and I guess if you can just speak to that, because I've had that come up.
Yeah, carpenter bees are tricky because they will always come back to the same hole. So they know where their house is, they lay larvae in them, and so they just kind of keep digging the next hole in their same hole. So they always come back to that same hole, they'll dig another section, so their tunnels start to go longer. If it's in like a trim on your, like that one was on some trim, outside trim above the garage door, that's really, that to me, that's a cosmetic thing. But it's when it gets into the structure or into your deck structure that the more they come, the more they grow, it'll continue to make those holes longer. The way that they treat carpenter bees are basically they inject some stuff into that hole, and then they either do like a wood caulk or like a mineral wool. They stuff the holes with mineral wool. So I mean, it's like a $75 fix if you catch it early. So yeah, they're not, to me, they're not, it's not a like the house is gonna fall down kind of issue. But if it's not taken care of over years, the more holes, the more they reproduce. They're always coming back to that same hole, so that hole's getting bigger every time they cut, every season. So
Thank you.
Great. What other questions do we have?
I'd like to talk about foundation and what is, I saw a report that the north and the west wall of a basement needed structural bracing. So what's your, I guess, experience with that? And I guess just talk a little bit about that.
yeah,
Please and thanks.
foundations are tricky because it's all kind of depends on the quality material, the location, the surrounding. If you got good drainage away from your house, the less water towards your house. Those are kind of the big starts, is like make sure you got the drainage correct around your house. And then if you start seeing cracks, it kind of depends. There's a stair step crack that you can see in corners where like the corner of your house is settling, or there's horizontal cracks where there's a big bow from pressure on the outside. Or you could get verticals. We always recommend, if you see a crack, you want to find another one. So there's not just going to be one crack that's going to be an issue. There's going to be more than one. So if you see two stair steps from the north wall and the east wall in the corner, that means that corner's settling. And again, the fixes are always going to be different depending on if you have a concrete foundation or if you have a masonry block foundation. So you're going to see a lot more cracking in masonry block versus concrete. Concrete does crack. It's not a material that's never going to crack. It's going to crack. So you'll start to see little hairline cracks and stuff like that. Once you start to see them grow, that's when we kind of get more concerned. So it's a little tricky, but once you start to see some of these cracks, because you inevitably will start to see more cracks. If you feel the edges of them and they're still like sharp, that means it's a newer crack. If you can tell that it's like the edges have been kind of abrased where like the pieces have fallen off, you can kind of see it's an older crack. The fixes for those things, again, we don't really recommend like, hey, this needs supported. We call them out as cracks. We really recommend nowadays a basement person come look at them versus a structural engineer, because structural engineers are very expensive just to tell you what's wrong. So we always recommend you have like a basement authority or basement doctor or someone of that nature come out and look at them versus a structural engineer. Because if you call a structural engineer, you're going to pay $600 for a report for someone else to then come fix it. That's where we've been tending to send clients, is like, hey, go find a basement person and look at this versus a structural engineer.
Yeah, so to piggyback there, a lot of times the inspection report will notate things that like Tony or other inspectors will encourage you to get an additional inspection. So in that situation, Tony may not be able to answer 100% like why that's happening, why that crack is occurring. And that's why we want an authority on the topic to come in. Similar like roofs. Let's say a roof is in rough shape. He might say, you might want to get a roof person out here and give you more information.
Hey, Tony, can you give us some things to look for on roofs, like when we're looking at a house, that if we should be concerned before we make offers?
Yeah, I think the best thing that I've noticed is just kind of compare paper. If you can kind of see like you'll see an age in a roof if you compare it to the neighbors. So you'll see this darkening, or like you'll see that it's like a different shade than your neighbors, and that's where you can kind of tell the ages of them. But really the thing you'll notice the most is when it's losing its granules. So when the rocks start to fall off the shingles, you'll start to see that kind of get patchy, or you'll start to see it to get a little darker. Those are kind of the things to kind of check for aging. Other things you can kind of look at is the shape of a shingle. So if the shingles are flat, they don't have like the other ones are called three-dimensional. So it's basically a shingle can either be flat or it'll have like 3 layers on top of it in one shingle. The 3-layered shingles are the ones that are going to last longer. Those are the ones that'll last the 25 to 30 to lifetime kind of shingles, versus the other ones are 15 to 20-year life, if that. So that's been a big one, and you don't see too many of the flat shingles being put on houses nowadays. So that kind of can be one of those things to say like this is an age thing versus a
I have a question. Does it behoove a seller or a potential seller to have an inspection before they put their house on the market and remedy some of these things?
I mean, I encourage it for people. I think that's kind of where the market is. Like if you know you can sell your house without spending the extra $300 really quickly, it's kind of one of those that's like it helps. You can use it as a selling tool. Like, hey, we had this inspected, and these are the 6 things we fixed already, so that you don't have to potentially not have to worry about it. But I've had lots of clients who have already had, or the houses had pre-inspected, and we go back in and inspect it again. So yeah, I mean, I encourage it just because it'll help you be able to know what you're going to look at and when it does come to time. But again, it just depends on the market. Now, I mean, if you can sell a house in a day on listing, I'm not sure it really helps you.
I would encourage you guys, if you're on the listing side, look at what's happening. To Tony's point right now, you're going to get 30. I mean, it's ungodly how many offers you're going to get. And surely somebody's going to waive the inspection. And you might even get somebody who's going to say, I'm not even going to bring an inspector through, period. So you might be able to save your guys, basically the person be buying the house as is, not asking for anything. So you might be able to save your folks some money there. But Maureen, to your point, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, when it wasn't as hot and crazy of a market, I think that'd be a great idea. It's a good question.
I think a lot of it also depends on the age of the home. An older home, probably better idea. Newer homes, if it's only 10 years old, there really shouldn't be that much wrong that would warrant getting an inspection beforehand. Like older homes, people tend to worry more about, you know, what all could be wrong.
True.
Well, I've been in situations where the buyers nitpicked us to death so that it became a negotiation for a reduced price.
Sure. And we'll get into the remedy request here in a moment. I want to let Tony go though. If are there any other questions for Tony while we got him on? Please ask. Going once. Going twice. All right, Tony, any last thoughts, any last words?
No, I mean, I just appreciate you guys letting me join. Again, my contact information's there. Feel free to call, email. I tell all my realtors that we work with, like, hey, if you're at a listing and there's something funny looking, just send me a picture. Like, I want to be a helpful tool for you guys, even if it's not just inspections. If you're just looking at something and be like, hey, I don't know how old this is. Can you tell me how old it is? Again, those are things we want to help you guys do before you get to the process of trying to make an offer. Yeah, thanks Josh, and thank you guys.
Yeah, and one last thing, there's been moments where I've like personally been looking at potential investment properties. So if any of you are investors, or maybe if Tony's in the area and you're going to go see a place and you're really interested in it, I've asked him to join me before on a showing and just give me a quick synopsis and throw him $100 or whatever. And if he's in the area and it's convenient for him, he's normally pretty quick to jump in and help. But take his contact information down. And if you need other inspector recommendations, if you never had an inspection, holler at me. I've got my list of 3, but I always try and steer people this way. So thanks, Tony, for joining in. And if you have any other questions for Tony afterwards, holler at me or holler at him offline.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and now we're going to get back into, we're going to hopefully leave the last 10 minutes for a little bit of other information, but I do want to share the inspection remedy, what can occur from the other side when you request for things to be fixed, okay? So I always brace my buyers and my sellers for this as well. So when on the sale side, if we get a remedy request, we're the listing agent, my first step before I even broach the subject with my seller is to look at the report, look at the items they're requesting, and start to formulate in my head maybe pricing, approximations, because everything's different, but getting in a ballpark idea of what the price could be like, because we can counter back or we can respond to a remedy request in one of 3 ways. We can either accept the entire remedy request and fix everything. We can deny or only accept a couple pieces of what they're requesting. Or we can just offer them money and basically say, go away, do it yourself. And the money is obviously the easiest way to do things. It's basically saying, hey, in lieu of, and what you're seeing on the screen here is an example of, in lieu of making any fixes or repairs, we would like for you to credit us $3,000 at closing. That's the easiest way to go about it, where the seller doesn't actually see that money come into their hands and leave. They're actually just giving that as a credit, so they walk away with $3,000 less at closing. There are other examples. I'll try to find one here where we counter back at, hey, we'll fix this, this, and this, but not the entire report. Or we just sign it once we get the initial request and we're going to go fix everything. On the other side of the equation is on the buyer side, as you're requesting these things, again, brace your buyers for every possible scenario. So on the buy side, we get the document ready, we get our buyers to sign it, we submit it to the other side, and we hope that they sign it and are willing to fix everything. But if it's an unreasonable request, I mean, there have been inspection remedy requests that I've seen that are 20 items long. What are the odds they're going to fix all 20 items? Slim to none in this market, especially. They may counter back that they'll fix this, this, and this, or they may just say, hey, in lieu of fixing all this, let's just throw you $5,000. So my clients definitely already know what the possible scenarios are and outcomes. A good agent will keep the transaction together through this whole process. Even if sometimes it requires a phone call to the other agent and saying, hey, let's keep this thing together. I think we're close here. You said you wouldn't fix this. Well, this is a really big concern for my client. Would you be willing to maybe renegotiate this? our goal is to try and maximize our time, right? And what we would hate to do is go back to showings, especially in this market. What questions do y'all have for the remedy request process, the inspection process, anything that I haven't hit?
So let's say they do get a credit. Can they take that from their down payments, or does that just come off the loan? Does that make sense?
So if they agree to a credit, it just comes off their the amount of proceeds they're going to net, the seller's going to net at the bottom line. It'll come off as a credit. So it's going to be like $3,000 less that your buyer has to bring to the table at closing. Or they could also do it a different way. That there's several different scenarios that this could play out. I've seen it happen where the seller will just write a check, a personal check to the buyer and hand it over at closing. There's different
allowed.
methods.
Is that allowed? I thought it wasn't allowed at closing.
There's different things you can do. I've seen it done. So I think you don't want to loop your lender into all the such stuff that's happening. Never, this is a good call out. Never send the inspection report to the lender. Never send the inspection remedy requests to the lender. The lender doesn't need to be involved in this part. Unless you get a credit at closing. And at that point, I would not include all the other verbiage. I would just create an addendum for the contract stating either maybe there's a reduction in purchase price or there's a credit at closing. Regardless of what it is, the lender only needs to know the numbers. They don't need to know what's wrong with the house, because that's going to spook the lender out and they may want more information about those things. So never share this stuff with the lender.
Exactly. I just wanted to make sure of that. So thank you.
Great question. And for those of you who don't know, Jay is the newest addition to our coaching program. And then also Derek is on. So welcome, Derek and Jay. We're excited to have you guys.
Hi guys, welcome. So I have a question regarding something that's currently happening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, ask away.
My buyer has an FHA loan, and now for the second time we're going to have to push back closing because the seller hasn't even started our request to remedy, and she can't get the loan until we have proof that those are fixed. I'm wondering how, I have been persistent with this man to start this, and I don't know what to do from here.
Well, FHA brings additional hurdles to jump over, right? So with a conventional loan, typically we just go through the remedy request period, we get through that, and then appraisal, and then boom, we close. With FHA, there are certain safety things that must be fixed in order to proceed. And so when you have an unresponsive seller, have you been persistent with the agent? Like, what's the agent telling you?
Well, the agent hasn't exactly disclosed this, but through some research, I found out that he is part of the selling group and the agent. I've texted him 3 times this week and he hasn't called me. He hasn't responded to phone calls or anything. But we've been in contract since January 21st now, and he hasn't. We were supposed to close on the 20th, tomorrow actually, and now it's pushed back to the 5th. And at this point, we can't process the loan until those things are fixed. And everything that came up in the FHA inspection was included in the original request to remedy that he agreed to.
Well, I would encourage you to reach out to the lead broker.
Okay.
If you're not, and this goes for everyone, if you're not getting a response from the other agent, there are 8,000 agents, and I tell everybody, 8,000 agents across Columbus. I would say a fourth of them are full time, and then of the 2,000, half of them stink. That's not going to be any of you guys, but there are unresponsive agents out there. Whenever I'm not getting an answer back, it's time to go a step higher. So go to the lead broker at whatever brokers they're at, and that should hopefully get them moving.
Okay.
And just be transparent and honest. Say, hey, I don't mean to like get this person in trouble at all. I'm just trying to get an answer. We're supposed to close soon and I'd love to do it. Just want to make sure the other side's on board and I can't get a hold of the other side.
Okay, so it's not overstepping if it gets to this point to reach out to the broker.
It's in that broker's best interest for you to reach out because they don't get paid if their agent doesn't do their job. So really, you're doing their broker a favor.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And shouldn't that agent have disclosed that they were part of the sell? I mean, that's like the law, right?
Yeah, that's a
And
requirement.
they could totally get in trouble for that too.
It
Yeah.
was not disclosed to me at the beginning, but he's signing all paperwork as the seller.
That should have been like in the listing.
It should have been. And now that you're in contract, just get through this remedy, close. And then if you want to file a grievance, do it then. You don't want to piss them off now, right?
No, I don't want to piss him off during. I would really like to follow through and close on this, especially in this market.
Amen.
Is it disclosed to the buyer?
It was something I found out through my own research. It was not disclosed on the listing or to the buyer.
Yeah, we can talk more about that offline, I guess. But the crux of the situation is FHA loans. Prepare your buyers and your sellers for additional hurdles. And like this one, they gotta be quick. Now, sometimes FHA will require paint. So if there's chipped paint on a home that was built before 1978, it'll be required to be scraped and painted. And in this weather, when it's super cold, sometimes it's hard for you to paint because it won't adhere, or that's the excuse that I get a lot. So that may cause delays as well.
Okay.
Great stuff. Well, guys, I'm going to move on. We got 5 minutes left, and I do want to cover some other stuff. If you have additional questions about inspections, hopefully this was helpful for y'all. Holler at me offline. But I did want to make sure that everyone was aware. The next 2 weeks, we are going to focus on new builds. This can be a very viable option for our buyers in this market where there is such a minimum amount of inventory. And so the reason we want to do this is to put a spotlight on we're gonna spotlight 15, I think it is 15 builders, actually 16 builders from across the city. They all focus on Central Ohio, and they can be a resource for you. There's going to be all kinds of different price points. There's going to be all sorts of different styles as well. And some of these builders will not compensate realtors. This is information that we're going to learn through this process. If you received a text message from me earlier in the week and have not responded, please respond that you are aware of which builder you're covering, because I would hate to have any surprises. So this is going to be kind of a class project, so to speak. We're going to have 15 of our agents that are here in coaching present. Each person is going to take 3 minutes and explain a different builder. And we're going to do this over the course of 2 weeks. So next week, we're going to have, I believe it's 6 or 7 of our agents here go through 6 or 7 different builders. And then we're going to have an actual representative from MI. He's going to jump on and be kind of like Tony was today or Ryan was last week, a resource that we can literally just ask questions to. So this should be a great 2-week series. If you are responsible for getting the information for a builder, please do so. Don't come empty-handed. We're not asking for the world, just some quick questions. In addition to that, for those of you who have opted into leads, I promised you a different lead source in addition to Command Facebook leads. And as of yesterday, I signed a deal with Market Leader to obtain leads from Westerville and the Northwest Columbus area. So that would be like the Worthington down to Clintonville areas where we're hoping to get leads from. We will not receive as many leads because these are expensive. However, they should be more fruitful. And my objective for you guys is to give you leads that will turn into closings and not just leads that give us crappy contact information. So if you have not already, I've spoken to 2 people this week who wanted to opt into leads. Again, for leads, we don't charge anything until you actually close, and then it's just a referral fee. So it allows you to have more contacts and get your feet wet quicker than if you're doing it all on your own.
Can I ask a quick question about the leads? So will they actually click on something that's saying that they want more information, or how does that work?
Yeah, these leads that we're going to be getting from Market Leader are going to be more like a Zillow lead, where the person literally opts in to get contacted.
Awesome.
So that's why it's going to be more fruitful. It's not like a gotcha, surprise. It's going to be somebody who actually wants more information, supposedly. And I need y'all to be very transparent with me. If you get a lead and it turns out to be a hot piece of trash, I need to know, because I can go back to them and say, hey, this was a bogus lead. Give me a real one. Okay. Last thing. We got a minute left. I know it's hard out there, guys. Okay. I'm struggling myself. I'm working with 10 plus buyers right now, and the market is very lean. Don't get overwhelmed right now. It's a little challenging, and we need to remember that it is February still. The spike and the increase in listings will hopefully come starting next month. The weather has not been conducive to people wanting to list. And just historically speaking, March kind of is the kickstart for the spring market. So my hope is that we start to see a lot more options for our buyers. My encouragement for y'all is that we're all in this together, and there's no secret to this success other than to do what is foundational and you know is going to lead to success, and that is lead generation. When in doubt, get on the phone. When in doubt, contact your sphere. Let them know you're here for them. Contact them and just ask them how they're doing. Don't be afraid to do the things that the other 8,000 realtors are not doing. Cold call, circle prospect, geographic call, go door knock. People are getting a lot more lax with the coronavirus thing since the vaccines have been released. So don't hesitate to do the things that other people aren't doing. And from this morning's call, I do want to make sure that we are all aware, do not place mail inside of mailboxes. We are not allowed to do that. All right, guys. So that concludes our call for the week. I really appreciate y'all. Thanks for joining in. I look forward to the next 2 weeks. It's going to be really awesome. And we're all going to learn a lot about the different builders from across the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, guys.